Hello and welcome back to an absolutely smell-tastic episode of the Game Hump Wednesday nights here at the Game Huggers. We've got Sarumaru and myself here. We're doing the Game Hugger podcast, and this week's kind of a big, momentous occasion in the world of SNK. Isn't that right, Sarumaru?
Sure is.
We've got SNK Playmore has apparently announced that they are changing from SNK Playmore back to classic SNK.
Isn't that crazy?
That is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year for your SNK for sure, man. Atlas is also going to be putting out the new King of Fighters. Did you read about that?
Yes, they're going to be they're producing it, right?
Yep, they're going to distribute it, which is a big deal because that means that they see money in it. So
that is a big deal. Atlas, which is also in cahoots with Sega, working together to bring SNK's King of Fighters game, and that's King of Fighters 14 to the PS4 and Xbox One. Isn't that right?
Right.
Wow,
I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. How have you been doing, sir?
Pretty good. I'm trying to find my headphones so you don't get that weird like reverb, but I don't know what I did with them.
The classic Super Nintendo reverb. I'm trying to get my Neo Geo CD to play here because I wanted something in the background, and it's totally freaking out on me.
Is it?
Yeah, sometimes it does this thing where it like resets every once in a while, like in the middle of a game, but it usually only when it's loading, like in the middle of a load, it'll just reset, which is really awful. Like it just
did like a lens thing.
I don't think so. It'll do it before it even starts reading. It's really, really weird. But it hasn't done it in a long time. That's why I was kind of like, okay, why is it doing it now? Anyway,
which one is that one? Is that the top loader?
Yes, it is.
Yep. Yeah, those have issues.
Up until a couple months ago, I hadn't had any issues. I had it running at a few different game conventions, and I've never had issues with it. I had a couple times where it would reset, and it's doing it right now. You can actually see it like, oh, there's the screen, yay. Hopefully it'll go back to it. Anyway, so yes, SNK has announced they are back. No more SNK Playmore, thank God. So it doesn't sound like it's a freaking toy company for pedophiles. It's an actual it's an actual
SNK Playmore.
SNK Playmore. Yeah, I was like, I understood why it became SNK Playmore, because they were kind of technically a different company, Playmore, that was repurchasing the SNK name from the, what is that, Pachinko company or something like that.
A ruse.
Yes, a ruse, that's it. And so they kind of combined the two, SNK Playmore, but it's like no one respects the name Playmore. It's not anything that means anything to me. So it's like just become SNK again and just fix everything. See, now it's playing just fine. And Magician Lord's one of those games that it only ever loads the one time.
Yeah.
So the game's
great.
It is. It's awesome. On the Neo CD, it's just wonderful, and I got it for like a really, really inexpensive price. So I was really happy about that.
That's nice.
So, anything new in your world going on since the last time we spoke, sir?
Not a whole lot really. Working on Henshin Engine. We ran into some things. We might actually end up switching composers for it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, but better now than later.
Sure.
Only because some difficulties. I'm thinking that the person who we're using a track right now that this person did for me, but his hourly rate is quite high, so we're going to jump away from that. But other than that, it's going along smoothly. I'm coming up with a bunch of new designs for the stages, and I'm excited. There's going to be a shmup stage in it, which is going to be pretty cool.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be like a Lords of Thunder parody.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's exciting. So, my world is not exactly too much going on as far as what's new between now and last week. But I did order a cable after talking to you guys for the Neo Geo consoleized MVS. So
Sweet.
I was hoping it would be here today so I could have that in the background, but unfortunately it did not show up yet. It's in transit. I believe it's like a state or two over. So hopefully I'll have it tomorrow. Hopefully for sure by next week's episode. So I can have that playing around with that some. But the Neo CD is doing just fine. It's a good standby system for the background noise behind me here.
I absolutely love the Neo Geo CD. I think it's an excellent console. All the arranged tracks on the CD versions are great. It's an awesome console.
Yeah, that's I went with the CD this time around just because I've never had one. I guess I should start over. I used to have an AES many years ago. About 10 years ago, I had one, and I wound up selling it along with most of my gaming collection in like 2008. And I wanted to get back into it around 2010, 2011, so about 5 years ago-ish. And I saw the prices, and it's like, wow. And I just so happened to have a Neo Geo CD kind of fall in my lap for a very good price. So I was like, well, I've always wanted to have one. I've heard horror stories about it. Like usually the joke is that Neo Geo CD is the system everyone wants until they have it. And then they're like, what the hell do I have this for?
See, I don't believe that. I think it's a great console. You just gotta appreciate it for what it is. A lot of the later games have really killer load times, but a lot of the earlier games play just fine. They load quickly. For people like you and me who come from a generation of CD consoles that take considerably longer to load, the load times in the Neo seem all that bad, to you and me. But I'm sure to anyone who came, during the PlayStation era and onward, or N64 and onward, goes back to play a Neo Geo CD, and they're like, holy crap, I can go make some ramen and a coffee and come back and the game's still not loaded.
Yeah, I do enjoy the games for it for sure. I like that there's a couple, Neo CD only games like Cross Swords 2 is fun, and the Samurai Showdown RPG is really good. And the arranged soundtracks, and especially most of the first gen like Neo Geo games, everything from Fatal Fury 1 through Special and Art of Fighting 1 and 2, the World Heroes games, a few of those games and stuff like that, on the Neo CD play so wonderful because they really only load one time. It loads the entire game into its RAM. And it winds up, you don't ever have to load it again. Like Magician Lord will play, I can play it from now until the end of the game and it'll never load again. It's just awesome.
Yeah. They'll load the one time and the soundtrack is awesome, so bonus.
Right, exactly. It's some of the later games, and I've actually grabbed a few of them here. Not even super later. It's some of the, like this one, Real Bout Fatal Fury Special, or just Real Bout Fatal Fury, is a rough one. It loads so often. It doesn't load between rounds. Actually, I think it does load between rounds because it has the day, afternoon, and night. Oh man, it's just it's almost unplayable. It's pretty close to unplayable just because of the load times.
To me, all of the King of Fighters after '96 are kind of unplayable.
Yep. But something like Baseball Stars 2, Baseball Stars plays wonderfully on it. Magician Lord plays really well. The first King of Fighters that came out for it, King of Fighters '94, plays pretty well because it only loads between the fights instead of each round.
Yeah.
And it takes quite a while to load because it does load 6 characters. But I don't have a whole lot of... It's one of my
favorite all-time SNK games.
94. It's so fun, yeah. I remember the first time. And that kind of jumps right into the first thing that we can talk about since it is SNK week. What are some of your favorite SNK memories?
Oh, man. So, pre-Neo Geo, I'd have to say the first big impact game for me that SNK made was Psycho Soldier.
Oh yeah,
because it was the first game I'd never heard a game with actual vocals. in a game. It's the first time, you know. And so the first time I played it in this like little hole in the wall arcade in Los Angeles. I walked in, I'm like, what the F is Psycho Soldier? And I was like, whatever, I'll try it. You know, I popped a quarter in, and then the theme song starts playing and someone's singing, and I was like, you know, that was unheard of for 1988 or whatever. You know, and I was a kid. So that was the coolest for me, I think. And then after that, it wouldn't be until the Neo Geo days that I started to really get into SNK, like early Neo Geo.
Yep, I remember my first experiences came with the NES game Baseball Stars. That, and then in the arcades, Prisoners of War, or POW. I always called it POW. I was like, there's POW, let's play POW.
That was dope.
At the arcades, it was like all the teenagers were surrounding like Double Dragon and Bad Dudes, but then they'd leave POW alone, and it's like, let's just go play POW, because like those guys are big kids and we're never going to get a turn. So I remember playing a little bit of POW in the arcades. I never really played the NES version, but I did play the arcade one, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. It was kind of like,
it was good, yeah.
At the time, me seeing it from my perspective in our area here in central Wisconsin, like it seemed like kind of a poor man's Double Dragon, only because Double Dragon was so hot in the arcades at the time.
It was.
It's like, man, those two games for SNK, and then I had never played a home console Neo Geo during most of the 16-bit wars, all the way until like finally I saw one in the late 90s, like at a friend's house. It was like, oh my god, that's a Neo Geo, but it was so far past that, you know, genre or that era anymore, that I missed out on it. But I did play a lot of those games in the arcades too. I played a lot of the SNK, the multi-cart, like four cart Neo Geo machines. Yep. But before that even, let's see, I played POW, I played Baseball Stars, and then my absolute favorite experience, or my favorite memory with SNK, was actually a role-playing game, or an action RPG that came out on the NES called Crystalis.
Yep. Great game.
Yeah, that one, it's like, it was so crazy because at that time the NES had like Zelda, and then, you know, the Master System had like Legend, or was it Golden Axe Warrior, and then the Turbo had some RPGs, and the Genesis had some, and it was kind of like there were lots of them. But Crystalis, man, that game, it was so, like, the graphics were so advanced at the time. The soundtrack was so well done. I thought it was so huge and such a giant game. It felt like, man, it felt like some of those 16-bit like RPGs on an on an old 8-bit system. It was like, this is amazing how good this was.
Right. It felt bigger than it was.
Right.
For sure. Especially for the time.
Yeah. That was a huge one. I love that one so much, and that was something I played the hell out of so long, playing that one. And then like during the 16-bit days, in the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, because those were what I had access to at the time. And then I did get a Turbo Graphics in the mid-90s, or 94 I got one. But it was always getting the ports. Which console would get the best port of the Neo Geo games?
I think we might be particular to a certain console as far as ports go. But I mean, I did pick up the other ports. Like I did grab like Fatal Fury on the Super Famicom, which is terrible. You know, when you compare it to any other version. But you know, it is what.
I heard the Genesis version of Fatal Fury 1 is actually pretty good.
It's actually, well, it's better than the Super Nintendo version.
It's got the dual planes or whatever still, I think.
Yeah.
I remember getting into Fatal Fury on the Super Nintendo mainly because we were all waiting so anxiously for Street Fighter 2 to come out on the Super Nintendo, and one-on-one fighters were like becoming huge. I mean, they were like, just if you had a one-on-one fighter, it was almost like people were trying it out and playing it and buying them just because it was a fighting game. And the Super Nintendo just had a flood of all these really kind of terrible fighting games that were just flooding the market right around the time Street Fighter 2 came out. And Fatal Fury was one of those. And I remember hearing about it in the arcades and hearing about it on the Neo Geo, and then I saw it on the Super Nintendo. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta play this. And certainly I was disappointed, but I didn't really know any better. Like I just thought I was playing. I thought I was playing a Neo Geo game on a Super Nintendo, so I was like totally eating it up. I like the soundtrack. I love the characters, and I think even on that Fatal Fury 1, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the Super Nintendo version, there's either a code or there's a versus mode where you can play as the other characters.
There might be. I actually don't know. I didn't discover the Super Nintendo version until way after.
Oh yeah.
The era was done and over with.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually own the first Fatal Fury for the Neo Geo CD until like 1998.
Wow.
I think so. That was the first version of Part 1 that I owned. So I have no idea. That could be. The game is fairly terrible, though.
It is. I think you have to go into versus mode, and then if you're the second player, you can pick all the characters in the game, up to Geese. But if you're the first player, you can only pick the 3 main characters. It's because the system...
That's janky.
It's very janky. It's almost like they just put it in there to be like, look what you can do. You can play as all the other characters. You can't do that on the other versions. Like, really?
Just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. It's so funny. But, man, I love SNK. I mean, it's so much fun to play all these games and have such good memories of being in the arcades, being on the NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, all the way up until like, up until the current consoles. I mean, it's just this company that's been making games forever. The ports on the Saturn were amazing of the King of Fighters games.
I loved Neo Geo on the Saturn.
Yeah.
It was the best for me because it was the closest I was going to get to the arcade experience on an optical system at home, for sure. King of Fighters loaded super quick.
Yes, it did.
With the RAM card. All the other Neo Geo ports, the only Neo Geo port that really suffered was Waku Waku 7, but that wasn't even SNK, so we're not even going to talk about it. But everything else was really good.
And it's funny, too, because I actually loved the Saturn version of Waku Waku 7. I've heard it wasn't that good, and it's still an expensive game, and everybody wants it. But, man, I thought it was awesome. That was how I played it the first time, and then I wound up playing it on the Neo, and it's like, this is just amazing. Oh, my God, it's so awesome.
Yeah. It's just slow on the Saturn is all. Like
slow load times or?
Just slow gameplay. Like there's a lot of lag.
Sure.
In the gameplay, that's what everyone complains about is how slow it is when compared to how quick the Neo Geo version is.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's not bad. Bad game.
So, some of my more recent, I should say recent, but like maybe in the last 10 years, more recent, best memories of SNK is from the Neo Geo Pocket Color. That little handheld I've got so many hours into SNK versus Capcom, Card Fighters Clash. I just played that like a little Pokemon maniac.
I didn't play that one too much back then because my attention span is already small, and it was even smaller back then. If characters weren't beating the shit out of each other, I didn't want to play it. Yeah, but I did play the other one, the Match of the Millennium, which came out together with that game.
Yep.
That was awesome. I love that one.
Yeah, SNK.
I gave myself blisters that one.
Oh yeah, I loved that one. That's so good. The music was awesome in that game. All the chip tunes were great. I thought the graphics were really well done. They
were.
At the time, with a handheld console, with those sprites being such fluid animation, it was so cool seeing how good it looked. It's just like, how are they doing it? Like, because it looked like an 8-bit
gameplay was so tight too. Do you remember how tight the gameplay was on that console?
Oh yeah,
it's that little analog stick. Yeah, it was. It did the fighting games justice. That little analog stick.
Yes, it did.
Surprisingly enough.
The Neo Geo Pocket Color, the little stick that it has on it, is very similar to the Neo Geo CDs. You can hear it clicking.
Yeah.
That is the same style. And it's so good on this controller. A lot of people complain about this controller, but I actually have no issues with this.
Those.
Pulling off the moves, it's got everything. The quarter circles, every directional, all 8 directions are so easy to get with this little I guess you can call it an analog stick, but it's very reminiscent of like an arcade joystick.
Right, just flatter. I love the clicky noises that it makes.
I do too. I do
You
too.
make
The
quarter
Neo.
circles.
Yep. Yeah. So
It's very cool.
yeah, the Neo Geo Pocket Color. I know there's only like what 45 games for it or something like that, but they're so good, and the ratio of good games to crap games is like so unbalanced. There's so many great games for it.
There are, yeah. There's a lot of really good games. Gal Fighters, what was it called? Gal Fighters Clash or something like
There's
that, right?
Gals Fighter. Yep.
That one was cool too.
That was a really funny one. It was so fun. Like the play control was like almost perfected at that time because they had done they did Fatal Fury on that. Then they did two King of Fighters, R1 and R2.
Two Fatal Furies, two King of Fighters, then Match of the Millennium. They had the Last Blade.
Yep, and Samurai Showdown.
And yeah, they had two Samurai Showdowns, didn't they?
Yes, also? I think so. Yep.
Yeah. And then and then Gal Fighters.
Yep. And they were all kind of based on the same engine. So each time they got a little bit closer, a little bit tighter, a little bit like more crisp controls, and it just got better and better. And a lot of people overlook Gal's Fighter like it wasn't anything real special, but it actually came after Match of the Millennium, and it was like the perfected one. I think the thing that people
play tight.
A lot of people like kind of look past it because it's all female. It's all of the girls of the SNK universe that are fighting. But it actually has some really funny moments in it because one of the characters is actually a dude dressed as a girl. That's Yori, I think.
Yep. Right. Actually, I thought it wasn't a gender bent Yori.
I thought so, but it was very much Yori. He was like, he'd I don't remember what it was, but his shirt would like start to fall off, and he'd be like putting it back on, like, you know. Yeah. That's so funny.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good game.
The only thing that I'm not very experienced with in the SNK universe was the Atomus Wave. I know that was very similar to like the Dreamcast, like the same kind of architecture. A lot of
Atomus Wave. It's really close.
Do you have a lot of experience with the Atomus Wave? Because I've virtually got nothing to talk about.
No, I've only ever played Atomus Wave games in the arcade. I was big on King of Fighters Neo Wave when Neo Wave came out because we had one in the arcades, so we'd always go play it. But other than awesome. Neo Wave, I don't really not a whole lot of experience.
What about the Neo Geo 64?
Oh man, what was it? Fatal Fury Wild Ambition.
Yep.
I got to play that here. They had it in an arcade. We had an arcade called Mary Kay's here, and they'd always get like the newest SNK stuff. They had like rows of Neo Geo stuff, and then when the Neo Geo 64 came out, they had gotten that Fatal Fury Wild Ambition and some racing game that was out for the arcade as well. I don't remember what the racing game was, but I'm looking at the Neo Geo 64, and I'm just thinking to myself, I was like, these graphics are kind of bad. Like, it's pretty bad. And I'm looking at it thinking the PlayStation could handle this pretty easily. And then later on, they actually ported with Fatal Fury Wild Ambition to the PlayStation, and it looked very similar to it, other than just less sharp polygons.
Yeah, it played. Yeah. It wasn't like a horrible game either, because I remember playing it quite a bit. I thought it was all right. I mean, I guess in comparison, it's seeing your favorite King of Fighters characters in 3D that was probably put the rose-colored glasses on for me. But
right.
But I remember that one, and I remember Samurai Showdown 64. That was a real turd.
Yeah, that was.
That was a pretty rough one. And I don't know if their plan was eventually to bring those on the N64 or something, but man, the N64 could have really used some fighting games. Like,
it could have. No kidding, because N64 had like 2 fighting games, right? It had like some terrible fighting game by Jalico or somebody.
It was pretty much every one of them was made by Midway. It was like there was Killer Instinct Gold, and then there was War Gods, and then there was Dark Rift, and like there was all these terrible Midway 3D fighters, and they were just like they just ported them right to this N64, and it's like we need more of this shit. Like, seriously?
Yeah. I think there were only 2 Japanese developed fighting games on the N64, and I believe I can't remember the name of it. It came out in America, and I
Fighter's
believe
History.
Jalico made this game.
Fighter's
No, it wasn't
History.
Fighter's History.
Oh,
The Flying Dragon.
okay, that's right.
Yeah,
What am I
Flying
thinking?
Dragon 64.
Fighters
But
History.
there's another
That's
game.
that's a Neo game, isn't it? Fighters History.
Yeah, it's
that
a
was
Neo
like
game.
a Data East game. There's one that's Fighters Destiny.
That might be it.
That's an N64 fighting game. There was 1 and 2. Both of them are on the N64. They're actually pretty good fighting games. They played similar to Virtua Fighter. They had a Virtua Fighter style like engine. But the game didn't play with power bars. It played by points. It was.
Yeah.
I think that's what everyone was.
It was like numbers that counted down when you got hit, right?
Yeah, either that or you got knocked down. I think you got knocked down 3 times or something like that. But it was actually pretty awesome. Like the game was very, very well done. It was like really surprising.
Oh yeah, I never actually saw it.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Like, I think I've seen pictures of it. I am familiar with it. I've just never actually played it.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big N64 guy.
Yeah, I wasn't either. It was like the N64 to me was such a just gigantic disappointment that anytime there was a game that was even remotely playable or a game that wasn't another carbon copy of Mario 64, I was like, holy cow, it's something different. We need to play it. Like, so foolish. I'm one of the dumbasses that in 98, I bought an N64 and I bought it with Yoshi's Story. Yoshi's Story. And then I went I was pro Nintendo all the way into like 2000. Well, I shouldn't say 2000 because I got the Dreamcast in 99. But like for a good year and a half, I was on the N64 bandwagon. And games were just coming out. And I'm like, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one that kicks Sony's ass. And it was just so disappointed.
Yeah, I completely skipped the N64. Never got one. Well, I did get one, but once they were like, $50, I picked one up. But I never got one during the time. I was super angry at Nintendo for actually making the N64 as opposed to not going optical at the time because I really wanted them to go optical. Everyone else was doing it, So, and I thought they would have done awesomely if they had actually gone that route.
Well, if they had gone that route, they would have been the PlayStation. I mean, honestly, that's what all the developers wound up going to.
Yep.
It's so weird. Like, I constantly hear people say how much they enjoyed the N64. Or, people that are, in their early 30s or maybe late 20s. They're like, the N64 was so wonderful, such a great system. And I just think, when I think of the Super Nintendo, and I really, really like the Super Nintendo. It was a great system. I think all of the great types of games that I loved on that system. I loved platformers. I loved RPGs. I loved fighting games. I like the shoot 'em ups. There were a couple good shoot 'em ups. Axelay is a really good one. And I love the puzzle games. And then when they went to the N64 and they went with the cartridge-based system and the controller, that fucking controller, that horrible controller.
I hated that shitty controller. It's so shitty.
It bottlenecked all of the developers so that they could only really develop one type of game, and that was Mario 64 clones. And Mario 64 is a great game. It certainly is a very neat game.
Yeah, it was innovative for its time.
Yeah, and Zelda, Ocarina of Time, another great game. But I can think of like 5 games that are must-own, and they're all the same type of game. I mean, Mario is great, and then Zelda is Mario with a sword, and then Conquer is Mario, but it's rated M for mature. But it's like, it's really tough for me. There's no good fighting games. There's Fighters Destiny. There's Killer Instinct. Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Okay, now we got a couple, but that's just nothing compared to the Saturn or the PlayStation. I know we're like way off topic now, but that's totally fine.
I know.
I just need to like say this because
I feel you on this rant. I was in that same boat, except I didn't actually buy one when it was happening, but I thought the same things. I was like, God.
Oh, dude, when I bought the N64 and I bought it with Yoshi's Story, and why did I buy Yoshi's Story? Because it was a 2D platformer, and the graphics and the pictures and the screenshots and the magazines looked beautiful. Like, they looked amazing. And I liked Yoshi's Island a lot, Super Mario World 2. So I was thinking this was going to be a direct sequel to that. And that is a tough as balls game, huge game. And so when I brought my N64 home, I had the one controller pack. with it, and no memory cards and no rumble packs and just the game. I put the game in, and 35 minutes later, I beat Yoshi's Story. And I was like, oh my God, did I make such a huge mistake here? I can't believe it. And that game is such a bummer to me. Like, it's always going to be this story of like how much I despise this system, because I was looking forward to that game so much, and they dumbed it down so that little kids could beat it. It was basically like,
yep, that's what they did.
So disappointing. But anyway, we're here to talk about exciting and happy things. SNK is an exciting and happy thing.
Speaking of SNK, did you ever play that one Xbox 360 Samurai Showdown game? I never played it.
I have it. Samurai Showdown Sen.
That one, yeah. Is that good?
No.
But take it by your deep sigh.
It's kind of got some similarities to Soul Calibur, but it's really, really cheap in the way that it tries to be overly gory, and that made me so upset. I'm just like, it's the same reason why like that new Splatterhouse that Namco did a few years ago. Reason why that game flopped too, because Splatterhouse wasn't just stupid and gory. It was creepy, it was subtle, and it was difficult. Like the new Splatterhouse that they come out with was just a hack and slash bore fest with just over the top gore. And they tried to do that with this new Samurai Showdown, and it was like there was like lots of decapitations and lots of. The music isn't memorable. The graphics are pretty good, and it does say SNK, and it's got all the cool characters that we know and love. I would recommend everybody try it, and then usually you can find it for like $5 to $10. It's probably not a bad purchase, but like I said, it's really hard. Like the learning curve is like you'll have to get really used to playing it, and by the time that you've probably spent a couple hours, you realize that you've wasted your time because the game's not that much fun. But I don't know. I have it. It is what it is. I don't know. I can't say it's good, but I'm kind of happy I played it, I guess.
I think I'll pass.
Probably smart.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea. But
don't get me wrong, I love Samurai Showdown. Like the first few games were amazing and innovative.
Right.
Awesome.
Yep. There was 5 of them.
Samurai Showdown. Right? There were 6 of them, right? Because didn't they make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5 special, super ultra rare?
That's right. Yeah.
$999.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I loved all the early ones a lot.
Yes.
And I ended up getting that on a bunch of consoles.
I sort of
3DO port was actually really good. I don't know if you ever got to play the 3DO one, but I was surprised at how good this game was.
I've heard that
close it was.
Yeah, I've heard that most of the 3DO ports of like Fatal Fury Special, Samurai Showdown, and was there another one? I can't remember.
Was there?
Oh well, there was Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. But
yes,
I've heard that,
and that one was good too. It's like arcade perfect.
Those 3 games I've actually played. I haven't played them, but I've heard those 3 games play like nearly arcade perfect. And that's really impressive.
What's the other Neo game on the 3DO?
I think that was it. Fury? I think I was just thinking of those 2. Well, there's Fatal Fury Special, and then there was Samurai Showdown, and then there was Street Fighter 2 Turbo. That's what I was thinking of.
I need to find Fatal Fury if there is one. I need it.
I'm pretty sure there is.
I love Fatal Fury, so like I try to collect all the Fatal Fury ports except AES and MVS because it's a lot of money. But
AES is a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah, way too much money.
What
do you think of? Let me ask you. What do you think of like old SNK art? When you like look at like old Neo Geo games and you see like a lot of the artwork, do you like a lot of the old SNK artwork? You know how a lot of it was done like by that same dude, whatever his name was.
Yeah, I loved it. I
have mixed feelings about it.
He did a lot of the King of Fighters and like the Fatal Fury games towards the end. Like if you see Geese Howard, it's like this is very reminiscent or very much the style, like with the deep eyes, the eyeshadow on all the characters, and super detailed and like I liked it. Yeah, I liked I love their art style, and I think they really started with that artist around Fatal Fury 3, I think. Because I remember
actually, they started with that artist like really, really early.
Was it before that even? Oh.
Yeah, because I believe Fatal Fury 1, his name is Shin Kiro. Because I remember his book, and he has like a lot of old SNK art in his book, and one of them was the Fatal Fury cover.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and he did like Mutation Nation and like a bunch of old. What was the one Final Fight clone?
Shoot.
Something fight, explodey fight,
burning fight.
That one. He did that too.
I bet he
some
did.
Of his artwork was good.
Yeah, I remember. I liked that art style. I don't know if I ever like really loved it, but when I saw it, it was like, oh, that's SNK. It's like they're kind of like their watermark at the time. When you see art like that, it's like that's an SNK game. That's an SNK character.
Right. But then when you see art like this, check out Homeboy's hair right here. It looks like I'm Haomaru, the mariachi samurai.
Haomaru and his 3 foot tall hair. That's amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look at his face, though. It looks so weird.
But it's classic. It's awesome.
I got mixed. Yeah, it's cool. That's why I say I got mixed feelings about it, though, about his art. Because sometimes it's just weird.
I think when they finally did the SNK versus Capcom series, and Capcom did their 2 fighting games, and I got to see like the Capcom style of characters that they had drawn in the Street Fighter games and the Street Fighter and then the Marvel versus Capcom games. And then you got to see the SNK style of art, and they would mix them together, and they're like big collages of all the characters and stuff. Like, I thought that was so cool.
I did too. I thought it was awesome. And you're thinking of a Capcom versus SNK too, right? When you like you go over to the Capcom side, but it's all drawn by that one artist. So I believe that's when Capcom stole him, because Capcom actually ended up taking that artist.
No way.
And he drew a bunch. Yeah, he did a bunch of stuff for Capcom. Tons of stuff. If you look at the Tatsunoko versus what is that? The Tatsunoko Wii game.
Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
Yeah, it's all that dude.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, it does look like him. Oh my god, that's crazy.
Not. What else was there? Some other dinosaur game or Metal Slug game. I don't know, but Capcom ended up taking him to do stuff.
That's
that
crazy.
Was funny. Yeah,
that is funny. Oh man. So, what? Speaking of fighting games, because that's SNK's bread and butter was always the fighting games.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite King of Fighters game?
94.
94, just like that. 94 is your favorite.
94 for 2 different reasons. It was the first of its kind. It was a complete like mashup of a bunch of SNK IPs, and I thought that was amazing. And I'm sorry, not 2 different reasons. I would have to say it's hard to say, because King of Fighters 96 is my favorite King of Fighters game. But as far as impact goes, King of Fighters 94 had a huge impact on me when it came out. Now I was like 14 years old, and like me and my friends saw it for the first time, and I think we collectively just shit ourselves when we played it. We were like, holy crap, look at all these characters. Homeboy from Fatal Fury 2, because I was a huge Kim Kapuan fan, and I love Mai Shiranui. And I was the only one in the group who had actually played Psycho Soldiers. So when I saw Athena, they were like, who the fuck is that bitch? And I was like, oh, it's Athena, and she's awesome. And so I'd have to say 94 just on sheer impact alone, not taking into account the game mechanics.
That's true. Seeing like Art of Fighting characters and Fatal Fury characters together in the same game was like just mind blowing. It was like, man, imagine if Street Fighter and Fatal Fury fought each other. Imagine if Time Killers and Street Fighter fought each other. Like,
why Time Killers? It's such a bad game.
It's a terrible game. It's awesome. Imagine if Holosseum fought Mortal Kombat. No,
who?
That's that Sega hologram game, the Holosseum.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But like Ralph and Clark, they were from like Akari Warriors, right? Like
that's right. And I actually forgot to mention earlier today. I was gonna, but then we started talking about other stuff. Is Akari Warriors was also another SNK game I played the shit out of.
Yep.
In the arcade. I think everybody did. It was a popular game in the arcade.
Yes, it was good.
Very,
it was really good.
Run and gun, and you got to hop in those little square tanks, and they shot the cannonballs. It was dope.
Yeah.
But it was awesome that they were in King of Fighters.
Yeah, I remember very well too. Man, it must have been, 1994, walking through the arcades, and I walked up and I saw King of Fighters, and I'm like, well, what is this? And it's like, holy shit, SNK is like doing an annual like festival or this annual event where all of their IPs come together, minus Samurai Shodown, because Samurai Shodown was out around the same time too, and I was looking for like Samurai Shodown characters in it, and they never were in them actually, but did they? Wasn't the girl in it? The girl with the hawk or whatever? Was she ever in King of Fighters?
So she wasn't in King of Fighters, but she was in Capcom versus SNK.
That's right.
Nakoruru. There were two
Yes.
actually, two Samurai Shodown characters.
Nakoruru and
Haomaru. Actually, also, oh no, wait, she's from Last Blade. Yeah, Nakoruru, Haomaru, and then they had those two Last Blade characters.
That's right. Yes, Katie, I think, and someone else, or Cade, or is it Katie?
Yeah, Hibiki and Kaede. Yeah.
Yep.
Those are very cool. What do you think of Last Blade? Do you like Last Blade?
Oh, Last Blade's amazing. Like the first time I saw the intro sequence, I think it was Last Blade 2's intro sequence. The first time I saw that, I was like, dude, this is amazing. The animation in the intro sequence, the art style, the black and white like motion video that they were doing. Oh wow, it was out of this world. I couldn't believe it.
Yep.
And the gameplay.
Yeah, the gameplay was great.
The first time I played that, it was actually on the Dreamcast. They had Last Blade 1 and 2 on the Dreamcast, and I played those, and I'm like, oh, these are really, really pretty games. But I was completely shocked to see that they were almost direct arcade ports. Like, they weren't upgraded at all. I was like, wow. The Neo is so impressive from, like, what its run was, like, nearly 15 years. It was, like, from 90 to 2004. Like, that's insane. And Last Blade 2, Last Blade 1 and 2.
Was 89.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, really good games.
So, okay. You better talk.
No, go ahead. You better talk. Why?
In the SNK, like its history from when it started until now, what are your favorite types of games that they do? Like, say, okay, everyone loves their fighting games, but like, are there other types of games that they do, or are you mainly interested in their fighting games?
So, unfortunately, the only other games I really got into that were SNK games that weren't fighting games were Ikari Warrior. So, I'd have to say that their fighting games were the thing that just kept me coming back to SNK, because they did fighting games. They did them in a style that I really, really enjoyed, with beautiful artwork and sound, and it just kept me coming back for more. So,
So you're not a Blues Journey guy?
Blues Journey, it's all right. The ADK count, because ADK is their sister company.
I love ADK. ADK is awesome.
Okay, because if we're talking about ADK, I like all their stuff. Like I love. They did Magician Lord, right? It was ADK's first game.
That's
under the guise
favorite.
Of SNK.
Yeah, so they're you said there's the sister company. Does that mean that they're like a part of SNK or something, or?
Yes. Yeah, they were Alpha Denshi Kikaku, and they were directly under SNK. They were SNK's like, kind of like how how Sega had United Game Artists.
Sure. Yeah.
For the longest time, and they did like Space Channel Reds and all that stuff. ADK is the same thing for SNK. Or
interesting.
It was their sister company. They had a lot of awesome games. Like, I love Ninja Combat. As corny as it was, for the time, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it was really cool.
My favorite Neo Geo game period is Magician Lord. So it's like, I mean, the thing about being my favorite too, this game is so fucking hard. Like, after two or three levels, I think it's like the third stage that really gets me. It becomes my least favorite game ever made, because it's so cheap and so frustrating. It's like, it's a little bit of Ghouls and Ghosts mixed with Shadow of the Beast. Like, that's the best way to explain this game, because the controls are very Shadow of the Beast like, but the gameplay and the difficulty is very Ghosts and Goblins. It's crazy how hard it gets. But I loved the Neo Geo for so much more than the fighting games, even knowing I know that like 80% of the games are fighting games. I loved it for like Blues
like
Journey.
shooters.
There was a couple good shooters, especially like Blazing Star and Polestar. Yep. Those two
Polestar.
games.
I loved all the Aero Fighters games. Those were big on the Neo Geo.
Yep, that's true.
Last Resort is one of my favorite shooters.
That's a really pretty
great game. I love Last Resort. It's beautiful, beautiful game. Love Last Resort.
Mutation Nation, the Sengoku games.
Yes. The Sengoku games, those were great.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of really good games, and then some of the third parties like Sunsoft came on, and I know they did fighting games, but Hudson Soft actually jumped on towards the end too and did a couple. They did Kabuki's Clash, a fighting game, but then they also did Neo Bomberman, which was actually really good, even though it was only 2 players. A Bomberman game that only allows 2 players, but it had a lot of similarities to the Super Nintendo Super Bomberman games, where it was 2 players co-op. You could go storyline mode on 2 players at the same time, and that was really fun.
I never played Neo Bomberman.
It's I've played it on ROMs and like on emulation on like the Neo Rage X emulator, but most recently I got it for the MVS on that big 161-in-1.
Oh, cool.
Board, the cart that has it on there, and it's on there, and it's really good. It's like a really good Bomberman game.
It made me wish Hudson released more stuff on the Neo Geo, because like the stuff that they released on the Neo Geo was legit. Like Kabuki Clash was awesome. Panic Bomber was really cool.
Yes, it was.
Another company that released a lot of good shit for the Neo Geo was Technos. Technos released a lot of good stuff.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, not American Technos, but Technos, the last big company that they signed on with to do games for was the frickin' Neo Geo.
Yeah.
And they brought their licensed version of Double Dragon to it and released Double Dragon on it. And that game, it isn't perfect, but I liked it either.
It's not. It's a straightforward fighter, and you have like special moves. It zoomed in and out.
Yeah.
It had great music. It had the classic Double Dragon theme song that was so iconic for the series prior to the movie, which I thought was a nice touch too. I liked it. I thought it was a decent game.
It wasn't
perfect, but
yeah, it wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than Double Dragon 5 on the Super Nintendo and Genesis and Atari Jaguar.
Oh my god, that game was so bad.
Yeah,
so bad.
Yeah, it was. But and then is it Evolve or Emoga? Who was that company towards the end there that was making games? They did the Power Instinct games like Metro Melee, and they also did Rage of the Dragons, which was a really good fighter. I actually really liked that one better than the Double Dragon game. It was an unlicensed like sort of tribute to Double Dragon. It had like you had a Bobo, Billy Lee and Jimmy Lee, and you had a Bobo, but they were all called like slightly different names. It was Billy and Jimmy.
Yeah.
And, like,
God, why can't I think of the name of the company? It was Noise Factory and Eolith.
Eolith, that's it. Yes.
Company, yeah. Man, Matri Melee. That was a great game. I love Matri Melee.
So do I. And that soundtrack on the game is out of this freaking world.
It is. I love games that have like vocal audio tracks to them.
Yes, and that one's got it. That one's so much fun.
Waka Waka 7 was the first one for me on the Neo Geo that did that, right? With the vocal track.
So,
I think it was Waka Waka 7. And then Matri Melee came out, and almost every single track had vocals in it. I thought it was amazing. So great.
I'm really really excited about SNK right now, especially hopefully getting an MVS. That's gonna be my main game system down here for a while. Once I get it set up. Oh, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
So now, say you're like fantasy, not fantasy booking, but fantasy like creator back in the early '90s, and you're like you're president of Neo Geo or you're president of SNK. The Neo Geo's out, Like, do you think there's any way possible that with the Neo Geo, how powerful the system was, with the types of games that they were making in SNK, do you ever think the Neo Geo could have ever overpowered the Super Nintendo Genesis and TurboGrafx in the US or even in Japan and became like a serious competitor for a home console?
Not really, for two different reasons. One, the hardware was much too expensive. Cartridges were just really expensive to produce, so it would have never gone that route. Another thing is that the system had no RPGs, too.
It's true.
So, yeah, it's hard to compete in a console market when you're completely missing a genre entirely.
Yeah,
just since they were an arcade system. Yeah. But you know what? They could have gone. They could have gone a different direction with the Neo Geo CD, which is what surprises me. They could have made a lot of original content on the Neo Geo CD, other than just cool arranged soundtracks. You know, in a couple games, because there was like maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4 games that were exclusive to the Neo Geo CD, I believe.
Right. I think two of them are those like trivia games, right? Or King of Fighters trivia or something like that.
Two of them are trivia, and Ironclad, Brickinger, and Samurai Shodown RPG. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Wasn't Crosswords 2 also another exclusive?
Oh yeah, Crosswords 2, because there was only a Crosswords.
Right.
And I think it was one quiz game. So yeah, that's right. It was King of Fighters, Crosswords 2, Brickinger, and whatever other game I'm missing. Samurai Shodown RPG.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
Sad. Like they could have gone a completely different direction with it, I think, and maybe actually hired some other third party to develop for the system. But nobody would have hopped on because of how close it came to the Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn was over the horizon already. So people were like, well, you know, screw this. I'm going to get a Sega Saturn. You know, and so
I think too, when people are looking at a system that's, you know, kind of a follow-up to what you currently have, you're thinking of like a big leap forward in graphics, sound, and everything. And the Neo CD, especially with all the games that they were basically porting to it, it was like, so this is more of a parallel, like you're just making a move here to release another system that does the same thing. Like, it's less expensive.
That's what it was. That's what they were trying to promote at the time, was a system that was a Neo Geo system that you could still play at home, that was a lot more affordable, but still be able to play the same games, technically.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that, well, by the time the Neo Geo CD was coming out, NEC had the arcade card in 94 and 95. And those games, while those games are not arcade perfect, they're pretty close. Like Fatal Fury 2, Fatal Fury Special, Art of Fighting, World Heroes 1 and 2. I mean, those games play so well.
They did.
It's kind of amazing that they actually have quicker load times than the Neo Geo CD.
They do. It's funny too. And you know what? Those versions got their own arranged soundtracks, which is doubly awesome, you know, because they had their own soundtracks only exclusive to the versions on the PC Engine. The Neo Geo versions were completely different. I thought that was rad.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So, man, you know what? I've got that 161 in 1. That cart, I'm gonna go run and grab my like little slip real quick. It's got a list of all the games that are on it, and I'm gonna list off.
Cool.
I'm gonna list off some games to you, and you tell me what you think of them. Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Sing a song or something.
La la la. I'll show off games to what do we have? Like 2 viewers right now. Fatal Fury on the Super Nintendo. It totally sucks.
Oh, I thought for a second you were going to start dancing in front of your Neo Geo collection and like moon us.
No, I was showing off other ports. Here's Fatal Fury Real Bout Special, Dominated Mind for the PlayStation. Kind of sucks, but it's actually really cool in the fact that it's got like its own animated cutscenes that you only see in this version, as well as a new character, which was pretty cool.
Interesting. Okay, so this is the 161 in one. It's like a whole bunch of games all on one card. It's a hack. It's
in Chinese.
It's a reproduction that's in Chinese. Yeah, and it's got all these games on it. Some of them don't work quite properly. And also, it says it's 161 games, but really it's only like 67 original games.
Yeah.
Because there's all sorts of spots in it where I don't know if you can read it or not, but it's like it's the same name of the game, but it's got like a plus symbol or an X symbol after it. It's basically the same thing, just a little slight hack of it, or the same game in general. But thinking of like
a waste of space.
It is, but it's still pretty cool to not have to sit and switch out all the games and stuff. But here, let me think.
Sure.
We were talking about a lot of the fighting games on the Neo Geo, and we couldn't think of a whole lot of non-fighting games that are on the Neo, but there are quite a few really good ones. You had mentioned Aero Fighters. Yep. Did you mention Strikers 45?
I didn't. That game is great.
That's a great game too.
Strikers 1945.
Super Sidekicks. Those games are pretty good. Then we got the Sengoku games. I'm not sure what Last Soldier is. I'm not sure what that is.
Last Soldier.
Oh, how about Nightmare? Nightmare in the Dark, is that what it's called?
Oh, wow. Is that in there?
Yep.
That's a great game.
And
it's
so
like a kind of like Snow Bros or Bubble Bobble kind of thing.
Yep. Or Chip Chan Kick on the PCFX.
Yeah, or Chip Chan Kick. Pedophile Fantasy.
Or Spin Master.
Spin Master. Oh, I forgot about that game. That game is so much fun.
That's a really good one. Legend of Success Joe. That's a. That's not a good one. No,
that game sucks.
How about Shock Troopers 1 and 2?
Those are great.
Those are good games. Puzzle Bobble.
Yeah, those are really good games. Puzzle Bobbles are always fun.
Ninja Commando.
That one's pretty good. It's like a run and gun by 80K. It's pretty good.
Polestar's on here. Oh, and one of my favorites, Top Hunter. Roddy and Kathy.
Top Hunter. I liked Top Hunter. It is. It's actually really good on the CD too. I love it.
Oh, nice.
On the Neo Geo CD. That's
great. 8-Man.
Oh, I loved 8-Man.
8-Man's pretty awesome.
So
a lot of people bought it too. It's really weird. Like I thought it was pretty fun.
Well, it's old.
It is. It is.
One of the first Neo Geo games.
It's pretty crazy and over the top. Alpha Missions.
It was all right. It's a shooter, like a side-scrolling shooter game.
How about Prehistoric Isle 2?
That was a weird shooter.
It's very weird.
Weird in the fact that it's like all that like pre-rendered
digitized,
shit, digitized, and then like it was really loud and annoying.
Yes,
and it's hard. It's a hard game.
How about Thrash Rally?
Oh God!
I think that's like a top view, like OC Pro-Am or something.
It is. It is. It's a lot like it, and it kind of plays like bleh. It's all right.
Isn't it the same as like Neo Drift Out? Like those two games are very similar, I think. Yeah.
Very similar. Neo Drift Out though is more fun because it's faster and it's tighter controls.
How about Androdunos or Andronos?
Androdunos is all right. Androdunos was also a horizontal shoot 'em up. That was pretty good.
Captain Tamade.
Captain Tamade. I believe that's also a shooter, but if I were to describe it, it's probably like Star Protea.
Yes, it is.
In the sense that it's like a top-down shoot 'em up.
Yep, it's got a lot in common with that. Was that Konami shoot 'em up? That Twin Bee.
Yeah, Twin Bee.
It's a lot like Twin Bee. Yep.
It is a lot like Twin Bee.
Let's see. 3-count bout. We talked. Well, that one's a wrestling game. It's okay.
That's all right.
Neo Mr. Do. I forgot that was even. I can't.
I don't know if I've even played Neo Mr. Do. Like I know of its existence.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever played it.
It's pretty good. It's like really over the top, kind of like it plays very similar to the original, but it's super duper over the top and it's got tons of music and stuff. It's very Japanese. It's nice. It kind of reminds me of like the Super Dodgeball that Technos came out with on the Neo, where it was like the same gameplay overall, but it was so over the top and crazy that it's just like
I love that game.
This is too much for me to even handle. Like I can't watch where the ball is. There's so much zooming.
Yeah. That's true. Crazy zooming.
Viewpoint, American Sammy.
Yeah,
That's a
Viewpoint
great
was.
game.
I love Viewpoint. It looked great.
It is awesome.
Great isometric shooter.
And then there's King of Monsters. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, Monsters is pretty good. It's a wrestling game. It's a lot of fun.
Yep. And I think that's kind of it. There's a lot of other fighting games on here, like Kazuna Encounter, Savage Rain. Man, there's a lot on here. It's kind of crazy. Breakers Revenge. Tons and tons of games on here. Karnov's Revenge, Fighter's History. Yeah, Double Dragon's on here. Rage of Dragons is on here. There's a lot of games on here. It's kind of cool.
Does it have Waku Waku 7?
It does not. I do not believe it does. No, it does not. But it does have SVC Chaos. Ooh. Yeah, a lot of people don't like it.
Kind of disappointed. Yeah,
it's disappointing, and it's definitely not as good as Capcom versus SNK 1 or 2. But I mean, it's not.
See, I didn't even compare it to that. I took it as like I compared it to other Neo Geo games, and I was just kind of like.
Yeah, I was comparing it to SNK or Capcom versus SNK 2, which was, in my opinion, probably one of the best 2D fighting games ever created. I love that game. It's so perfect.
It's really good. It also had a high impact on me too. But I don't know. I think SNK does a good job alone with stuff. Did you play Neo Geo Battle Coliseum?
I did.
What did you think of that?
That's a really good game.
It is. I love that game. I love how they. Was that a Thomas Wave?
That wasn't a Thomas Wave game. Yep, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I ended up playing it on the PS2 when it finally came out. I never played it on the Thomas Wave.
Yeah, I did.
I liked what they did with the World Heroes characters.
Yes, that was so cool. Finally, to be able to get World Heroes characters into, and it was like what I always wanted the King of Fighters games to be. I was like, where is was it Fuma and Hanzo and Dragon and Jane and Muscle Power and like, where are all my World Heroes characters? I wanted them.
I love a new World Heroes game.
I do too.
Come on, SNK, give us a new World Heroes game.
Yep. Put ADK back together.
Yeah, we need to bring this generation a whole level of cheese that we had back in our day.
So you had said that King of Fighters 94 and 96 are your favorite games in the King of Fighters series. What would be your favorite fighting game in the SNK universe?
Favorite fighting game in the SNK universe? I'd probably still have to say King of Fighters 90s. Oh, no. Sorry. Real Bout Fatal Fury Special.
Ooh, nice. That is a great game.
For sure.
That is a great game. Even more than Mark of the Wolves?
I was never too big on Mark of the Wolves.
What?
Yeah, I know. Like everyone, whenever I tell people, I don't get me wrong, I like it. I have it on the Dreamcast. It's cool. But I have more fun playing Real Bout Fatal Fury Special or even Fatal Fury Special. Like I'll play Fatal Fury Special on PC Engine all day, every day. I
think that Real Bout Special has so much storyline in it, and then like the characters and the endings and everything are so well done. Like it's awesome.
The pixel work in that game is phenomenal. The characters look great. Yeah. They're huge. Like Krauser is like this really big fucker. He's huge, and you look at him and you're like, all right, he's last boss material. He's a big fucker. He's gonna fuck my shit up. It looks great. I love that game. Yeah. Music, graphics, gameplay. It has all of it. It's gotta be my favorite.
When SNK was doing the Real Bout games, it was around the same time that Capcom was doing the Street Fighter Alpha games. And a lot of people consider that to be like the best time in fighting games. Like SNK's best games with Fatal Fury, Real Bout Special, Real Bout Special, Real Bout 2, going up against Street Fighter Alpha 1, 2, and 3. And it was like these perfect games that if Capcom and SNK had been able to get together at that time to make a versus game with just the Real Bout versus the Alpha characters, like that would have been absolutely out of this world. But
that would have been great.
I mean, it kind of came when it came time for the Capcom SNK fight to finally happen and the game to finally come out. It was probably about 5 years past both of their primes as far as when their best fighting games were kind of behind them.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean,
which,
it was still great.
oh, it was still amazing. I mean, it was just awesome. But had it been done, in the mid '90s, who knows if SVC Chaos would have been a much better game or a different game altogether.
Right. Yeah, probably a different game altogether. Back then, especially. Because when it happened in 2000, everyone was like, "Oh, this is awesome! This is really cool." But I think the impact would have been greater had it happened in anywhere between 1996 to 1998, in that like window when both of them were at their absolute prime.
Yep.
For these games, but better late than never, I guess.
True, and SNK did have the really, really good games on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, so we got all those.
It did,
and that's awesome.
And who knows? I mean, SNK is making quite the comeback now, and
True.
They have a lot of financial backing from whatever Chinese company, and now Atlas is jumping in with them. So, who knows what's going to come out now?
Yeah, there's been a lot of either it was licensing or information online about SNK old school fighting games. I think it was Last Blade 2, King of Fighters 2002 or something like that, and one other game that were going to be on the PlayStation Network this summer to kind of build up, kind of ramp up to like King of Fighters 14, which is coming out this year, and kind of get everybody hyped up, and with full online play, getting kids that have never seen the game before or adults that love the game from back in the day, and they could play online against these other people. I know a couple of my buddies are like really stoked to play Mark of the Wolves and Last Blade online against other people.
Hell yes.
That'll be pretty crazy.
Is that what they announced? Mark of the Wolves online?
I thought so. You know what? And I don't know.
Crap.
Don't quote me, but I for sure thought it was King of Fighters 2002 and Last Blade, and I thought the other one was Mark of the Wolves, but I might be completely wrong.
2002 would be fine as well.
Yeah. I mean, I could just be completely talking on my butt right now because I'm just reading stuff online. But just to get hyped up and get excited for the King of Fighters universe again is just a big deal.
It really is.
At 12,
I'm actually looking forward to the new game. 14.
Yeah, 14, and was it 12 and 13 that came out on the last one, and then 11 was like a PS2 game, I think, or something like that, or I don't remember.
So yeah, 11 was a PS2 game. Which was actually really good. I liked that one a lot. And then they took a break for a while before the PlayStation one, and then they stopped doing the whole like year thing because it's been like 2 years for a while before another King of Fighters came out. And then they developed that awesome engine that they used in the last game just to scrap it. They were just like, you know what, letters, we're gonna do this in 3D. But I can understand why though, because they're throwing in like a buttload of characters in this new one. There's going to be 50 characters.
Yeah,
a ton of characters. It's a lot easier to model them in 3D than it is to draw hundreds of frames.
Right.
And I'm okay as long as they don't fuck with the gameplay. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the 3D. It's starting to look better. When the first previews came out for that game, let me tell you, it looked like PS2 bullshit. But it looks better now. It looks a lot better, and I'm happy with how it's turning out, except for some really derpy characters. But
yeah,
it happen when you got 80 billion characters in the game, right?
Right. I hope that everything turns out good with it. I think it looks really pretty. It's going to be on the PS4 and the Xbox One, I believe.
Is it?
I thought so. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just hope that it does really well, so that Capcom can kind of revisit the idea of wanting to do
fighting games,
do an SVC or CVS 3, finally finish the trilogy, because then they can have their Street Fighter 5 engine, which is 3D, and the King of Fighters engine, which is also 3D, and just kind of go at it one last time to settle the score. Because I think everybody was really disappointed with the Tekken Street Fighter Clash, that X game that they came out with, just because.
Oh God, yes.
Like the one game that did come out was okay. It was okay, but it was just a mishmash of two completely different styles. Whereas King of Fighters and Street Fighter is like, dude, you got former Capcom developers that made these SNK characters. Like they're pretty similar. You can make a fighting game, Capcom SNK 2 was like a perfect example of how they
really can. And you know what? And all the fans are waiting for a CVS 3 too. You know, like everyone's waiting for it. People make up like mock-up images. I don't know if you remember when somebody had a screen of CVS 3 and they started posting on Facebook and Reddit, and everyone was like, "Oh shit, hype! CVS 3 is coming out," and it was, you know, just a rumor, somebody Photoshop.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Fuck you, guy." I would love a CVS 3. That would be amazing, but that would be asking too much from Capcom, I think.
It's true.
Especially Capcom of now, because all those people don't even work for Capcom anymore. So like, who's gonna make this game? You know, the shell that, you know, that Capcom is now. I don't think they can really do it. You know, but I mean, we have Street Fighter. Street Fighter's, you know, I don't know.
Street Fighter.
I think it's possible.
Yeah. I thought Street Fighter 4 was okay. Street Fighter 5, I haven't yet to play it. I've got a couple friends who say it's really fun, but I've watched some gameplay of it even on Twitch and some YouTube videos, and it's like, I don't know, some of the characters are so weird and so goofy, and some of the new techniques are really odd. It's just like, I mean, I don't know if I could get serious about a Street Fighter game again, just because.
I don't get serious about a Street Fighter game that costs $60 and only gives you 12 characters.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of bullshit is that? What is this, 1992? Like,
yeah,
that's a lot of money to ask for a game that doesn't have, you know, Street Fighter doesn't have 50 characters out of the box. That game's going to cost like $49. You know, fuck you, Capcom.
Yeah.
On the
fuck you Capcom note, I'm gonna say that on behalf of Sarumaru-san and myself, thank you everyone for listening to the podcast. I did kind of forget to do all the call signs at the beginning of the show, but we've got some news. Saru, maybe you haven't heard yet, but we're working on getting this podcast on the TuneIn app for phones, tablets, computers, everything like that. Yeah, and that should actually be announced within the next 48 hours, I hope. We're going to have all of our podcasts will be streaming right on to their website on their application, so you can just search for search for Game Huggers on your TuneIn app, and you'll find our podcasts. It'll show like the last 15 episodes on the TuneIn. Also, if you're watching us live on YouTube, thank you guys so much for being a part of the show. Thanks for tuning in tonight. If you're listening to us on Podomatic.com, thank you for contributing to our likes and plays and downloads. You can always download these episodes for your listening pleasure, to listen on car rides or boat rides or airplane rides or wherever you're riding, bike rides. On the toilet, you can listen to us anywhere. And if you've ever got any inkling to contribute to the show, to give us ideas or advice, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter. It's @_Joshua Turbo. Don't forget the underscore, as it is super duper important. And we'll give you graham crackers for every tweet that I get. And if you're looking to join the fun on the social network, this week we had a question up about what your favorite SNK games were. We had a good thread going in the Facebook page for Game Huggers, which is which is facebook.com/Game Huggers, and you can join in the conversation with us. Anyway, for Sarumaru-san and myself, Joshua Turbo, you can check us out every week, Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Thank you for listening so much. I appreciate you guys, and you guys have a wonderful time, and take care of your ears, because that's really all we care about. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.